The courthouse was filled with the kind of heavy silence that only comes when justice hangs in the balance. 7-year-old Sophie Chen sat in the front row of the gallery, her small legs swinging nervously as she clutched the leash of her German Shepherd. Max, the massive dog, lay quietly beside her, his intelligent brown eyes scanning the room with the alertness that had made him the perfect therapy animal for a child who had been through too much trauma for someone her age. Sophie's mother, Lisa Chun, had fought hard to get special permission for Max to be present during the custody hearing. After the devastating car accident that killed Sophie's father and left the little girl with severe PTSD, Max had become more than a pet. He was her lifeline, her voice when words failed, and her courage when the world felt too frightening to face. Max had come from an elite therapy DOG training program specializing in trauma survivors. Max had undergone 18 months of intensive training that included exposure to courtroom environments and high-stress situations. What made Max exceptional was his documented ability to detect emotional distress in humans. His training included recognizing biochemical changes during PTSD episodes, changes in scent and stress hormones that humans couldn't perceive. But his reaction to Cain went beyond training. This was pure instinctual recognition of a threat. Today's hearing would determine Sophie's future. Her paternal grandmother, Helen Chen, was seeking custody, claiming that Lisa was unfit to care for the traumatized child. Helen's lawyers had argued that Sophie needed stability and structure that only a traditional family environment could provide. They had even questioned whether the dependency on a therapy dog was healthy for the child's long-term development. Judge Patricia Williams had seen hundreds of custody cases, but this one troubled her deeply. The 7-year-old at the center of the dispute had barely spoken since the accident 6 months ago. Sophie's therapy records painted a picture of a severely traumatized child who communicated mainly through drawings and whispered conversations with her German Shepherd. "Your Honor," announced the bailiff. The court calls Sophie Chen to the witness stand. Lisa's heart clenched as she watched her daughter slowly stand, Max immediately rising to walk beside her. The courtroom had been specially arranged to accommodate the therapy dog, with a small area beside the witness chair where Max could lie down while remaining close to Sophie. As Sophie climbed into the oversized witness chair, her eyes swept across the courtroom, taking in the faces of lawyers, family members, and court officials. That's when she saw him, a man in a gray suit sitting in the back row of the public gallery. He wasn't part of either family's legal team, just a random observer exercising his right to attend a public hearing. Sophie's small hand immediately pointed toward the stranger, her voice barely above a whisper as she said, "That man was there." The comment seemed insignificant to most people in the room. Children often pointed out random observations. Judge Williams gently redirected Sophie's attention to the proceedings. But Max's reaction was impossible to ignore. The German Shepherd had gone completely rigid, his ears pinned back and his lips curling in a silent snarl directed at the man Sophie had identified. Max's hackles rose along his spine, and a low, menacing growl began to rumble from deep in his chest. The dog's entire body language shifted from calm therapy animal to alert protection mode. "Mrs. Chun," Judge Williams addressed Lisa, "please control your dog." But Lisa was staring at Max in confusion. In the 8 months since they'd adopted him from the service dog training program, she had never seen him react this way to anyone. Max had been specifically trained to remain calm in all situations, particularly when working with trauma survivors. Sophie's court-appointed advocate, Dr. Sarah Martinez, approached the bench. As a child psychologist specializing in trauma cases, she had worked extensively with Sophie and Max over the past few months. "Your Honor, Max's behavior is highly unusual. This dog has been through intensive training and has never shown aggression towards strangers." Meanwhile, the man in the gray suit, later identified as Robert Cain, seemed uncomfortable with the attention. He shifted in his seat, avoiding eye contact with both Sophie and the increasingly agitated German Shepherd. "That man was there when the car was broken," Sophie said suddenly, her voice stronger now. "Max remembers too." The courtroom fell silent. Sophie's statement was the longest sentence she had spoken in public since the accident. Lisa felt her heart racing as she tried to understand what her daughter meant. Judge Williams called for a brief recess. But before the courtroom could empty, Max broke free from Sophie's grip. The German Shepherd bounded across the courtroom with purpose, heading straight for Robert Kane. Court security moved to intervene, but Dr. Martinez called out urgently, "Wait. Let's see what he does." Max didn't attack Kane. Instead, he positioned himself directly in front of the man and began what could only be described as an identification. Procedure circling Kane while sniffing intently, his nose working to confirm something his memory had already recognized. Kane stood abruptly, clearly agitated. "Get that animal away from me. I don't know what this is about, but I have every right to be here." But Sophie was speaking again, her words tumbling out faster now as memories seemed to unlock. "He was at the gas station before the crash. He was watching our car. Max saw him first and started barking, but Daddy said it was nothing." Dr. Martinez felt a chill run down her spine. Sophie's family had been involved in what police initially classified as a single-car accident on a rainy night. David Chen's vehicle had inexplicably veered off the road and crashed into a tree, killing him instantly and leaving Sophie with serious injuries. "Your Honor," Dr. Martinez requested, "I think we need to contact the police department that investigated the Chun family's accident." Judge Williams agreed. And within an hour, Detective Frank Morrison arrived at the courthouse. Morrison had worked the Chun accident case and remembered it well, primarily because certain details had never quite added up. The victim's car showed signs of possible contact with another vehicle. Morrison explained to the assembled court, paint transfer that didn't match anything at the scene. But without witnesses or additional evidence, we had to classify it as a single-car accident. When shown a photograph of Robert Kane, Morrison's expression changed dramatically. This man was questioned in connection with 3 other suspicious accidents over the past 2 years. Same pattern: families with young children, vehicles forced off the road, but never enough evidence to prove intent. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. What had begun as a custody hearing was transforming into a criminal investigation. Sophie, still clutching Max's leash, continued to provide fragments of memory that she had been unable to access before seeing Kane. "He followed us from the gas station," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Daddy looked in the mirror and said someone was driving too close. Max was upset the whole time. Dr. Martinez realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Sophie's traumatic memories, locked away by PTSD, were being unlocked by the powerful combination of Max's recognition and the safe environment of the therapy dog's presence. Kane, meanwhile, was growing increasingly agitated. His lawyer, who had been hastily called to the courthouse, advised him to remain silent, but the damage was already done. Max's identification, combined with Sophie's recovered memories, had created a chain of evidence that demanded investigation. Detective Morrison requested permission to question Kane immediately. But as they prepared to leave the courthouse, Kane made a critical mistake. When Sophie said, "He smiled when our car went into the tree," Max saw him too. Kane's face went ashen and he muttered, "The kid couldn't have seen that, it was too dark." The slip was caught by everyone in the room. Kane had just confirmed his presence at the scene of an accident he claimed to know nothing about. Dr. Martinez immediately documented the statement, while Judge Williams ordered court security to detain Kane pending police investigation. "How would you know it was dark unless you were there?" Detective Morrison asked Kane directly. The question hung in the air as Kane's lawyer desperately tried to control the situation, but the damage was irreversible. The investigation that followed revealed the horrifying extent of Robert Kane's crimes. He was a methodical serial killer who had been targeting families with young children for over 3 years, using vehicular homicide to make murders look like accidents. His method was sophisticated and deeply disturbing. He would identify families through social media, study their routines over weeks or months, and then force their vehicles off the road in remote locations, where crashes would appear to be weather-related or driver error accidents. Kane's apartment revealed the true scope of his obsession. Police found detailed surveillance photographs of dozens of families, maps marking isolated stretches of road, and journals documenting the daily movements of potential victims. The Chun family had been under surveillance for 6 weeks before Kane decided to strike. Kane had been watching the Chun family for weeks before the attack. He had been present at the gas station where David Chen had stopped to buy coffee and gas. And Max had indeed detected Kane's predatory intentions, something the family had dismissed as the dog being overly protective. The evidence against Kane expanded rapidly. DNA found in David Chen's vehicle matched Kane's profile. Security cameras from various locations confirmed his presence near all 4 accident scenes. Most damning of all, police found detailed surveillance notes in Kane's apartment documenting the movements of multiple families, including the Chen's. Sophie's testimony, supported by Max's behavioral evidence and Dr. Martinez's professional analysis, became the key to breaking open a case that had frustrated investigators for years. The little girl's trauma-locked memories, accessible only in the presence of her therapy dog, provided details that human witnesses had missed and physical evidence couldn't reveal. The custody hearing that had brought them all together was postponed indefinitely as the criminal case took priority. But in an unexpected turn, the traumatic revelation actually began Sophie's healing process. Having the truth validated and seeing Kane arrested gave her a sense of justice that no therapy session had been able to provide. Max's role in the case was documented extensively by animal behavior experts, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a leading researcher in canine memory and recognition, studied Max's responses and concluded that the dog had retained traumatic memories from the night of the accident, memories that were triggered when he encountered Kane's scent again. Dogs process trauma differently than humans, Dr. Walsh explained in her report. Max's reaction to Kane was both recognition and protective instinct. He remembered Kane as a threat to his family and was prepared to act on that memory. The legal implications were significant. Max's behavior became crucial evidence in establishing Kane's presence at the scene of the Chun family's accident. While dog testimony isn't admissible in court, the behavior patterns documented by trained professionals provided investigative leads that human witnesses couldn't offer. 6 months later, Robert Kane was convicted on 4 counts of vehicular homicide and sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. The trial had been covered extensively by national media, with Sophie and Max's story becoming a symbol of justice prevailing through unexpected means. During the trial, the prosecution presented evidence that Kane had been responsible for at least 12 suspicious accidents over a 5-year period. Only 4 could be proven beyond reasonable doubt, but the pattern was clear. Kane had perfected a method of murder that was nearly undetectable without witnesses, and he had never expected his witnesses to be a traumatized child and her therapy dog. Sophie's testimony, delivered with Max by her side, had been instrumental in securing the conviction. She had to testify twice, once during the preliminary hearing and again during the main trial. Each time, Max's presence enabled her to access memories and details that psychologists confirmed she couldn't have fabricated. The defense team attempted to discredit both Sophie's testimony and Max's behavioral responses, arguing that a child's memories were unreliable and that dog behavior couldn't be considered evidence. But Dr. Martinez's documentation, combined with video evidence of Max's reactions and Kane's own slip-up in the courthouse, created an unbreakable chain of proof. Kane's conviction led to reviews of dozens of other suspicious accidents. Investigators found evidence linking him to additional cases, and families who had lost loved ones in unexplained crashes finally had answers. The custody dispute that had started everything was resolved amicably. Helen Chun withdrew her petition, acknowledging that Lisa and Max together provided Sophie with exactly what she needed to heal. The family moved to a new city for a fresh start. But Max remained Sophie's constant companion throughout the transition. Dr. Martinez published a groundbreaking paper on the case, highlighting the unique role that therapy animals can play in helping trauma survivors access blocked memories. Sophie and Max's story became a model for innovative approaches to helping children process severe trauma. Today, Sophie is 10 years old and speaks regularly about her experience at conferences focused on child trauma and therapy animal programs. She advocates for the rights of children to have their memories and observations taken seriously, even when they come in unconventional forms. Max, now 5 years old, continues his work as a therapy dog but has also been trained in victim assistance programs. His unique ability to help trauma survivors access difficult memories has made him valuable in multiple legal cases involving child witnesses. The case established important precedents about the role of animal behavior in criminal investigations. While dogs cannot testify in court, Their trained responses to specific individuals can provide investigative leads that might otherwise be missed. For Sophie and her family, the most important outcome was justice for David Chun's death and closure for their traumatic experience. The little girl who had pointed at a stranger in a courtroom had unknowingly identified her father's killer. And the German Shepherd who recognized a predator had helped ensure that justice was served. The courthouse where it all began now has special accommodations for therapy, animals in sensitive cases. Sophie and Max's story proved that sometimes truth comes in unexpected forms, and justice can be served by the smallest voices and the most loyal hearts. Their bond remains unbreakable, a little girl and her German Shepherd who together unlocked memories that brought a killer to justice and helped a family find peace. In a system where evidence and testimony determine outcomes, they proved that sometimes the most powerful truth comes from love, loyalty, and the courage to speak up when it matters most.